The day my stepdaughter looked me in the eye and said I wasn't welcome at her graduation dinner. I was standing in my own kitchen, holding a casserole dish I had just pulled out of the oven. I remember the steam rising between us. I remember setting the dish down very carefully on the stovetop, because I didn't trust my hands. I am 63 years old. I spent 21 years of my life being a father to a child who was not mine by blood. I paid for piano lessons and hockey equipment and 3 years of university tuition. I drove 4 hours in a February snowstorm so she wouldn't miss her first-year orientation. I did all of this without ever once asking to be called Dad. Her name is Brianna. Her mother's name is Loretta, and I married Loretta when Brianna was 7 years old. I want to tell this story from the beginning, because the end doesn't make sense without it. I met Loretta at a mutual friend's retirement party in Burlington, Ontario, in the autumn of 2003. She walked in wearing a dark green coat and she laughed too loudly at someone's joke, and I thought, that's a woman who isn't trying to impress anyone. I had been alone for 4 years at that point. My first marriage had ended quietly, without drama. We had simply grown into two different people who wanted two different lives, and we had parted as friends. I had no children from that marriage. I had a house in Aldershot, a civil engineering position I had worked 25 years to earn, and a fishing rod I used maybe 3 weekends a year. Loretta had Brianna, who was 5 at the time we met, and she had a studio apartment in Hamilton and a part-time bookkeeping job, and an ex-husband named Troy who paid child support erratically and showed up for his daughter even less often than that. We dated carefully. Loretta was protective of Brianna in the way that good mothers are. She didn't introduce us until we had been seeing each other for nearly 8 months. When she finally did, Brianna was 6, and she shook my hand very formally and told me she had a loose tooth. I told her I'd give her $1 when it came out. She asked why only $1. I said I'd give her 2. She said fine. That was how it started. We married in the summer of 2004, a small ceremony at a winery near Niagara-on-the-Lake. Loretta's sister came, a few friends from work. Troy did not attend. I don't think he was even told. I moved Loretta and Brianna into my house in Aldershot. I repainted Brianna's room the color she picked out herself from the paint chip samples, a very specific shade of purple that she called grape but not gross. I built her a bookshelf. I took her to her first Leafs game, even though I'm a Senators fan, because she had seen a jersey in a store window and pointed at it and said, I didn't argue. I want to be clear. I never tried to replace Troy. That was not my place and I knew it. I was the man who lived in the house. I was the one who checked her homework and drove her to school in the ice and rain, and made sure there was food in the refrigerator. Troy came around when he felt like it. Christmas sometimes, birthdays occasionally. Never for anything that wasn't a special occasion. He would arrive with gifts he had clearly bought at the last minute, big things, flashy things, and Brianna would light up the way children do when the absent parent finally appears. I understood it. I didn't take it personally, or I tried not to. When Brianna was 11, Troy stopped coming altogether. No explanation. Child support payments dried up around the same time. Loretta took him to court twice over the next few years and got nowhere useful. Meanwhile, I was the one at parent-teacher nights. I was the one who sat with Brianna when she had her wisdom teeth out at 17 and cried from the pain and the anesthetic both. I was the one who helped her with her university applications, who read her personal statement drafts, who drove her to her campus visit at the University of Guelph on a Thursday morning because she had a class on Friday she didn't want to miss. She got in environmental science. I took her out to dinner to celebrate. She ordered the lobster and then laughed when it arrived because she had never eaten lobster before and didn't know what to do with it. And I showed her, and we laughed for about 10 minutes about the whole thing. That was a good night. I think about it sometimes now, and I still don't fully understand how we got from there to where we ended up. The cracks, when I look back, started sometime in Brianna's second year of university. She came home for Thanksgiving and something had shifted. She was quieter around me, more careful with her words, like she was editing herself. I thought it was just growing up. University changes people. She was becoming her own person. That's what you want for your kids. Troy resurfaced that winter. I found out from Loretta, almost offhandedly, over dinner one evening in December. She mentioned that Brianna had been in touch with him. I said that was good, that it was her father, and she had every right to have a relationship with him. Loretta agreed. We didn't talk about it again. What I didn't know then, what I wouldn't find out until much later, was that Troy had moved to Guelph. He was living 40 minutes from Brianna's campus, and he had apparently decided at 51 years old to make himself into the father he had never been when it would have cost him something to do it. I don't say this bitterly, or I try not to. He was her father, I knew that. But there is something particular about watching a person walk back into a life they abandoned. When you were the one who stayed through all of it, the orthodontist appointments and the school fundraisers and the years of driving and cooking and showing up, and seeing them welcomed back as though none of that cost anything. Brianna graduated in June, environmental science with distinction. I was proud of her in a way I genuinely cannot describe. 4 years, a lot of hard work, and she had done it. The graduation ceremony was on a Thursday morning at the University of Guelph. Loretta and I bought our tickets and arranged the whole thing. Hotel rooms for that Wednesday night. Dinner reservations for Thursday evening at a restaurant in Guelph that Brianna had mentioned wanting to try. I ordered flowers. Loretta bought a frame for the diploma. The call came on a Tuesday evening, 2 weeks before the ceremony. I was in the garage, replacing a washer in the utility sink. Loretta came and stood in the doorway and said, "Brianna called today." Her voice had a quality to it that I had learned, over 20 years of marriage, to pay attention to. I put down the wrench. "She wants to keep the graduation dinner small," Loretta said. "Just close families." I waited. "She's inviting her dad," Loretta said. "Troy." I said. "Okay." I wiped my hands on a rag. "She'd like it to be just the three of them," Loretta said. "Her, Troy, and me." I stood in my garage for a moment, and I thought about the drive to the campus visit in Guelph the Thursday morning, the coffee I had bought at a Tim Hortons outside of Aberfoyle, because Brianna had fallen asleep in the passenger seat and I had wanted to let her rest. I thought about the lobster dinner. I thought about the great but not gross bedroom. "She said that?" I asked. "She said she doesn't want me there?" Loretta looked at the floor. "She said she wants it to be about her and her family." Her family. I had paid $38,000 in tuition over 4 years. I had co-signed her student line of credit at TD Bank when she needed it for her second year because we hadn't budgeted for the lab fees. I had paid for her textbooks. I had fixed her car twice. I had been in her life since she was 7 years old. All right, and I went back to the washer. Loretta didn't say anything else. She went back inside. That night, after she was asleep, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea and I thought about a lot of things. I thought about what it means to be a step-parent, the particular invisible position of it, the way you are expected to do everything a parent does while being reminded at certain key moments that you are not quite a parent at all. I thought about the years. I thought about what I had given and what I had never asked for in return, because you don't, because that's not why you do it. And then I started thinking clearly. I called my accountant the next morning. His name is Philip, and he has handled my finances for 15 years. I told him I needed a meeting. He asked when. I said as soon as possible. We met that Friday afternoon. I laid out the situation. I told him about the student line of credit that I had co-signed. Brianna had been making minimum payments on it, but the balance was still substantial, just over $14,000. I told him about the arrangement Loretta and I had informally agreed upon when Brianna started university, that we would contribute to her tuition from our joint account, which was funded primarily by my salary, since Loretta worked part-time. Philip listened. Then he said, "What are you thinking?" I said I wanted to understand my options. I want to be careful here about how I explain what happened next, because I don't want to sound like a man who made a cold financial calculation out of spite. That is not what happened. What happened is that I sat with the situation for several days, and I thought about it honestly, and the honest conclusion I reached was that I had been operating under a set of assumptions that had turned out to be false. I had assumed that Brianna considered me family. I had been told clearly and directly that she did not. A person is allowed to update their behavior based on new information. I spoke to a lawyer the following Monday. I wanted to understand the process for removing myself as co-signer from the line of credit. The news was not simple. TD Bank does not allow a co-signer to remove themselves unilaterally. The primary borrower would need to refinance or get a new co-signer. I was told I could, however, send formal notice of my intent to withdraw support, which would protect me from any future liability if Brianna defaulted. I did that. I also sat down with our household finances and separated out the contributions I had been making to a savings account that Loretta and I had set up nominally for Brianna, for things like a down payment someday, or graduate school if she chose it. I stopped my automatic transfers into that account. The money that was already in it was money Loretta and I had put in jointly, and I did not touch it, but I stopped adding to it. I also called the restaurant in Guelph and canceled our reservation. I called the hotel and canceled both rooms. I asked Loretta if she was still planning to attend the ceremony itself, and she said yes. I said I would not be coming. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I think she finally understood that something had changed. "You're punishing her," Loretta said. "I'm accepting what she told me," I said. "She told me I'm not her family. I'm adjusting accordingly." "You're being petty." I thought about that word. Petty. "If a person tells you that you're not wanted," I said, "and you believe them, is that petty?" Loretta didn't answer. "I loved that girl since she was 7 years old," I said. "I never asked her to call me dad. I never competed with Troy. I just showed up every single day for 21 years. And she has decided when it came down to it that I'm not family. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Loretta went to Guelph for the graduation. She sent me a photo from the ceremony. Brianna in her gown and mortarboard holding her diploma, Troy on one side and Loretta on the other. They were all smiling. It looked like a family photo, I suppose it was. I spent that Thursday at home. I made myself a decent breakfast, eggs and back bacon, coffee from the good beans I usually saved weekends. I sat on the back deck and watched the birds at the feeder. My neighbor's dog barked at the fence for a while and then gave up. It was a warm June morning. The yard looked good. I had spent the previous weekend cutting the grass and trimming the cedar hedge. Brianna called me that evening. I let it go to voicemail. She said she hoped I understood, that it was just a complicated situation, that she hoped we could talk. She said she appreciated everything I'd done for her. I appreciated everything I'd done for her. I sat with that phrase for a long time. I didn't call back that night or the next day. What I did do over the next 3 weeks was make several quiet decisions. I updated my will. My previous will had included a provision for Brianna, not as a primary beneficiary, but a meaningful bequest, because I had thought of her as part of my family. I removed that provision. My estate would now go to Loretta for her lifetime, then to my brother's children. That was a private decision, and I made it privately. I also had a conversation with Loretta that was long overdue. I asked her directly, when Brianna called to tell her about the dinner arrangement, had she agreed with Brianna? Had she pushed back at all? Loretta was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I understood where Brianna was coming from. That's not what I asked. She's my daughter, Loretta finally said. She wanted her father there. Her father, I repeated. The one who disappeared for 10 years. That's between Brianna and Troy. I'm asking about you and me, I said. Did you tell Brianna that what she was asking was unreasonable? I told her to think about your feelings, and she said she had thought about it. I nodded. I thanked Loretta for being honest, and then I told her that I needed some time to think about some things, and I went to stay at my brother's place in Collingwood for a week. I want to be fair to Loretta here. She is not a villain in this story. She is a mother who spent 20 years trying to balance 2 worlds, and she sometimes got it wrong. I know she loves me. I believe that. But there is a difference between loving someone and standing up for them when it costs you something. I had needed her to stand up for me, just that once, and she had not. That week in Collingwood, I did a lot of thinking and a fair amount of fishing. My brother, whose name is Elliot, is a good listener who also knows when to be quiet. We didn't talk about Loretta or Brianna very much. We talked about our father who had died 8 years ago, and about a canoe trip we had taken as teenagers on the Magnatuan River, and about the price of lumber, which Elliot had opinions about. It was a good week. When I came back, I sat down with Loretta and had the clearest conversation I think we have ever had in 20 years of marriage. I told her that I was not leaving the marriage. I want to say that plainly, because I think people sometimes expect this kind of story to end in divorce. And that was not where I was. I told her that I loved her and that I intended to stay. But I also told her some truths. I told her that I was withdrawing from the financial arrangements we had made around Brianna. Not out of punishment, but because those arrangements had been premised on a relationship that Brianna herself had told me did not exist in the way I had believed it did. I was not Brianna's family. Brianna had said so. I had heard her. I was acting accordingly. I told her that I would not be contributing to the Brianna Fund going forward. I told her about withdrawing as cosigner on the line of credit. Told her about the will. Loretta cried. I let her cry. I didn't apologize, because I didn't feel I had done anything wrong. She's going to need help, Loretta said. She has student debt, she's just starting out. She has her father, I said. That landed hard. I knew it would. That's cruel, Loretta said. Is it? I asked. She chose him, Loretta. I'm not saying that was wrong, she's allowed to choose. But choices have weight. They mean something. I can't be the financial support for someone who has told me I am not her family. Loretta said, she never said that. She said the dinner was for family, I said. And I was not included. Those are her words. We sat with that for a long time. Brianna called again in July. This time I answered. She was pleasant at first, careful. She asked how I was. I said fine. She talked about her new job. She had been hired by a consulting firm in Waterloo doing environmental assessments. I said that was great. I meant it. I was genuinely glad for her. Then she mentioned the line of credit. TD had contacted her about the cosigner status change. She had received a letter. She wanted to understand what was happening, I told her. I was as clear and as calm as I knew how to be. I explained that I had formally notified the bank of my intent to withdraw support. I explained that she would need to refinance in her own name, which, given her new employment, she should be able to do. I told her I would give her 90 days before the notice took full effect, so she had time to make arrangements. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I don't understand why you're doing this. I think you do, I said. I think you understand exactly. Because of the dinner, she said. You're doing all of this because of a dinner. I'm doing this, I said, because you told me I wasn't your family. I believed you. I'm acting on what you told me. I never said that. You said the dinner was for close family, I said. And you didn't invite me. So I drew the obvious conclusion. Long silence. I was trying to make things easier, she said. Troy, it's complicated with Troy and I didn't want. Brianna, I said gently. You don't need to explain, you made a choice. I respect that. But I've also made some choices. That's all this is. She started to cry then. I sat with that. I didn't hang up, and I didn't apologize, and I didn't reverse anything I had said. I just let her feel what she was feeling. Before we got off the phone, she said, I've always thought of you as part of my family. I know, I said, but I needed you to act like it. And you didn't. That August, Loretta and I drove up to Prince Edward Island for 2 weeks. We had been talking about doing it for years and kept putting it off. We rented a little house near Cavendish, right off the Gulf Shore. We ate lobster rolls and drove around the island and walked on red sand beaches and didn't talk about Brianna very much at all. One evening we sat on the deck of the rental house and watched the sun go down over the water, and Loretta said, I should have said something to her. I didn't say anything. I just reached over and took her hand. I should have told her that you've given her everything, Loretta said. That she was wrong to exclude you. I knew it at the time and I didn't say it, and I'm sorry. I held her hand for a while. The sky went orange and then pink and then the kind of dark blue that comes before night. Thank you, I said. That means something. Things between Loretta and me are better now than they were. We're working at it the way you work at things in a long marriage. It's not fixed, not entirely, but it's honest. We say the hard things now. That's worth something. Brianna refinanced the line of credit in her own name in September. I received confirmation from TD. That chapter closed cleanly. She sent me a card at Christmas, handwritten, which surprised me. She said she had been thinking about things and that she was sorry for how the graduation had gone, and that she hoped we could find our way back to something. She didn't mention the money. I appreciated that. I haven't responded yet. I'm not sure what I want to say. I'm still figuring out what kind of relationship is possible now, what I have the room for, what I can honestly offer. I think about the drive to Guelph, the Thursday morning, the Tim Hortons coffee outside Aberfoyle while she slept in the passenger seat. I think about how much I loved that version of us, the quiet, unremarkable version, the one where I was just the man who showed up. I still love her, I want to be honest about that. You don't put 21 years into a person and stop loving them because they hurt you. It doesn't work that way. But love and boundaries are not opposites. I spent too long thinking they were. The fishing rod is getting more use these days. Elliot and I are planning the Magnatuan trip again for next summer, the one we keep talking about but never quite do. We have a route mapped. We've been serious about it, actually booked the outfitter, put the dates in our calendars. I am 63 years old. I have a house in Aldershot with a cedar hedge that needs trimming every spring. I have a brother who knows when to be quiet. I have a wife who is learning, as I am, to say the hard things. And I have finally a life that is entirely and uncomplicatedly mine, that feels like enough.